Localization in Fate Grand Order is the secret sauce that makes this game awesome. Especially for those of us who can't read Japanese, it's a total game changer. I mean, personally, I'm super thankful for it, because it lets me dive deep into the game. Language, slang, gameplay systems, you name it. The game's been localized for several servers worldwide. English on the NA server, Chinese on the TWCN server, Korean on the KR server, and of course the OG Japanese on the JP server. But let's be real, localization isn't always perfect. Sometimes things get a little lost in translation, or worse. So I've collected a few things that have been localized for NA, ranging from the best to the not so great. Let's dig in and see what's happening. Oh, this is 100% based on my observations as an NA player. Of course, you're free to have different opinions. In this list, I'm going to start with Osakabe Hime. Now, I can feel some of you face-palming and clicking away from this video, but hear me out. I truly believe she fits perfectly with this quirky slang. In her lore, she's kind of a shut-in who never leaves her room. Then she gets exposed to the internet and becomes addicted, which influences her speech. In the JP version, she talks like a Gen Z girl, sounding lazy but sweet. It's still kinda cringe, just like in the NA version, but once localized, this cringe Gen Z girl transforms into an iconic character. She becomes a meme and effortlessly takes over the internet. I'm not going to dive into the stereotypes the localization team might have had in mind when adapting Osakabe Hime. Instead, I see this as something that makes her stand out. And that's a good thing. Another example is the English title of Swanzong's event. The Japanese title was actually a nod to the film, Coming to America. The Japanese title roughly translates to Hoshi no Sanzang-chan, Tenjiku ni Iku. Coming to America was once localized in Japanese as Hoshi no Oji, New York EEQ. While many fans simply referred to it as Journey to the West when it was localized, the event was given the name Sanzang Coming to the West, keeping the reference and adding a multi-layered pun, and that's a whole lot cooler. Then there's the third one. The literal translation for the natural timeline lost to the Lostbelts, pan-human history, created a bit of confusion. Since pan means all, why would the Lostbelts be excluded from what's basically called all of human history? The localization clears this up by changing pan-human history into proper human history. Personally, I think this sounds way better. I mean, proper just fits better with the context than pan. Similarly, the alien god was localized as the foreign god, adding a bit of thematic resonance to conversations about it, and making it sound grand and mysterious. Those were my top the best localization picks that I've collected. I judged these based on their overall impact on the game, from the birth of a standout personality, to the name of a major event, to key game terminology. Now, moving on to the good category, which actually covers all game adaptations. But of course, there's a top list here too. Here are a few highlights I need to point out. You guys know the servant Van Gogh, right? This quirky lady has a bit of an odd personality and loves making cheesy jokes. In the Japanese version, she often calls her puns goh jokes. The localization team cleverly switched this to Van Goghs, blending her name with the word jokes. And you gotta admit, that's pretty cool. To be honest, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, whether it's Van Goghs or Van Jokes, but whatever. Another top localization in this category is for the golden servant you can only summon in the Friend Point Gacha, Habatrot. In the JP version, Habatrot gets the nickname Haba-nyan, with nyan being the Japanese onomatopoeia for a cat meowing. Since this doesn't work as well in English, and because it wouldn't make sense in-universe given that Habatro is Scottish, her nickname is changed to Habbycat, a playful nod to Tabby Cat. Okay, those were some examples in the good localization category. Now it's time to dive into the worst category, Before we start, I never really thought there was anything wrong with FGO's localization. Sure, there are some translation differences that some in the community feel are a bit off, like the titles of Lostbelt 6 or Lostbelt 4. But I don't see these as bad. In fact, after seeing the originals, I think the localized versions are actually pretty okay. However, there are one or two things I can't stand. These things I can't say I'm fond of, really. The first is the naming of the mascot servant of the entire Fate series, Artoria Pendragon, who is called Altria. Honestly, I'm sure a lot of people dislike this decision. The NA localization team often gets blamed for some of the more unpopular translation choices, such as rendering Saber's name as Altria instead of Artoria, or using the rather clunky title for the knights in British Lostbelt. Turns out, interviews with the translation team have revealed that Type Moon keeps localization on an extremely tight leash, allowing practically no freedom in their choices. This means these translations are entirely on Type Moon's shoulders. In fact, certain translated chapters poke fun at some of these forced choices. For example, Moriarty uses logical deduction to determine that Altria Alter's name should be Artoria, before calling Altria a corruption of the original. Additionally, most of the translation team are on record as disliking having to use the name Altria over something like Artoria, but Type Moon's direct orders tie their hands. Much like with the whole Altria fiasco, fans were seriously displeased when the NA release of Lostbelt 6 changed the title of Morgan's Knights from the more understandable Fairy Knights to Tam Lin. While Tam Lin is an actual fairy knight in folklore, many found it bizarre to use his name as a title for all fairy knights instead of just sticking with Fairy Knights. This naming choice seems to be another thing forced onto the localization team. Fairy Knight Tristan's model, released a year earlier, already had Tam Lin listed as her title. Plus, Anime Japan 2022 merch featuring them also used this title. This consistency suggests that Tam Lin was mandated by the higher-ups, likely to maintain specific branding or thematic consistency, even though fans preferred the straightforward Fairy Knights, well, including me. So those were some of the top picks for the best, good, and worst localizations in FGO. What do you guys think? Hit that subscribe button, and thanks a ton for 1,000 subscribers, everyone. You all are the best, and your support means the world to this channel.